signs. We got it backwards. We apologize for that. Let's find some apologies. We're going to get started. I'd like the candidates to come up and join me. Please use the stairs. If you'd like to have a pint, we don't have pints, but we do have a beer for you along with water. We're going to reverse the order of seating from the last time. So Mayor Taylor, Tommy Atkinson, Mike Villarreal, Leticia Van de Beek. Here's Leticia. We're going to leave the doors open to the beer line. And we're keeping an eye on you guys out there. And if it's relatively quiet out there, you'll be able to hear the candidates speaking while you wait in line for beer. If it gets noisy, then we'll close the doors. But I'm confident that you guys will keep it down and keep it quiet. Let me just get into my program here and we'll get started. That's not going to work on these people. I got backup. I used to work at a paper. Look, first I want to thank our sponsors. The reason that you're drinking more beer than the price of your admission ticket is our sponsors. And first and foremost is the Pearl Brewery. I want to thank the Pearl for giving us the state time. We want to do more events like this throughout the year where we combine civic engagement, maybe a beer or two, have a little fun in the process, learn a little bit, bring people together that normally don't get together. We wouldn't be able to do it at this price level without our sponsors. And our other major sponsor for tonight is Overland Partners Architects, and they are here in force, so stand up and let us thank you. Two of the principals are here, Rick Archer and Madison Smith. Thank you very much for doing what you guys are doing tonight. I actually wanted to quote Madison tonight at the outset. I didn't know if he'd be here, but he has a saying that it goes something like this: just okay is not okay anymore in San Antonio. And because of the excellence so many of you in this room represent, San Antonio now aspires to be more than just okay. And that's what tonight is about. I guarantee you the next mayor is on this stage. I can promise you that. And that's what tonight's all about. The leadership that the next mayor will show is absolutely critical, absolutely central to the city keeping its continued momentum and even accelerating the pace of change. So, a little background about tonight. Is this the 35th time the four of you have gotten together? I actually had the pleasure of moderating. Something other than money is driving this mayor's race. I really think it's wonderful in the political world we live in. I don't know if they knew what they were getting into when they first started saying yes to forums, but now I don't know how they say no. We picked today's date thinking, oh, this will be the last forum before Fiesta kicks off and then early voting, but I'm told you're going to have forums all the way through Fiesta. True? Right.
That'll be a lot.
Are you having fun? Are you guys having fun? Everybody still having fun?
Right now.
Do you still talk to each other and say good morning and good evening and you're getting along okay?
After the period Fiesta, we were having fun.
Well, we had a much smaller forum about the same time as the Alamo Brewery opened on the east side. And it was our first Pints and Politics. We didn't know what we were doing. We put the tickets online for sale at 6:30 a.m. Turns out a lot of you millennials don't get up at 6:30 a.m. like say retired military people do. And it was sold out by 9 o'clock, and we made some people pretty unhappy. So we asked the candidates to do another event, and they were very gracious in saying yes. And that's how we got here tonight. So let me introduce everybody, and I want you to welcome them warmly and thank them along with me. Mayor Ivy Taylor. Commissioner Tommy Atkinson. particularly because we knew it was going to be very much a young professional audience, not unlike the one tonight, to share a little bit more of their personal stories with everyone. And we gave them the microphone for quite a bit of the time that we were together. And we heard back from you rather vigorously in some cases that you want more questions asked. So when we started selling tickets, we started randomly asking some of you, probably several dozen altogether, were asked to submit questions to us, which you were very generous to do. I put all those questions together, synthesized them as best as I can. A lot of them are on the same subjects, and I'll do my best as we go around and ask the questions of each candidate to keep them on the time clock and relatively brief and make sure everybody up here gets equal time. I'll do my best. And we hope the candidates will stay and mingle with you afterwards. And let me tell the candidates at the outset, these people are tough. They don't look it, but you should read some of their questions. So, all right, let's go. I'm going to sit down and we'll get started. Thank you very much. I go non-disposable. I hope you do too. Leticia, there were quite a few questions about the collective bargaining agreement. I'm going to start with you, but of course everybody can jump in afterwards. 3 weeks ago, in the middle of collective bargaining talks between the city and the police union, you appeared at a press conference with union leaders on the steps of City Hall to accept their endorsement. After that event, for all practical purposes, collective bargaining came to a halt. The union did attend the next bargaining session that was scheduled after your appearance, but they informed the city they would not counter the city's latest offer, even though the city had yet again improved its wage and benefits offer. So the questions were, was it in the best interest of all sides for you to accept the endorsement, even though it appears to have brought bargaining to a halt until after the election, and what did you do or say to earn the union's endorsement?
Thank you very much, Bob, for this second opportunity to report to Overland, to the Pearl, and especially to the great folks at our Warrior Assembly. I'm really proud to be here, along with the folks that I consider public servants and friends. So the question is about the San Antonio Police Officers Association endorsement. Let me tell you, I'm very proud to accept the endorsement of the men and women who put their lives on the line every day. The endorsement process was with an interview, and contrary to what you hear, it wasn't about the contract. It was about 2 decades of public service that I've had and a relationship that I've had, making sure that as my job as state legislator, that we looked after and made sure that our first responders across the state were treated fairly. I sponsored bills that would require that when an officer or a firefighter was exposed to bodily fluids from a suspect or an accident victim, that they would be tested to make sure that they didn't have infectious diseases, HIV and Hep C. So it's been 2 decades of a relationship. I'm proud to have that endorsement. I was hoping that the talks, as I heard, that they got very, very close. There was nothing promised. There was nothing said. But what they do know is that I'm a straight shooter. What they do know is that I treat people with respect. And what they do know about my reputation is that I get people in the room to solve the big problems. Just like I did with the alcohol beverage industry, to get craft brew industry on par with the distilled spirits. Just like I did with insurance, just like I did with telecommunications. So,
Okay, let's take collective bargaining.
what anybody
Interrupt
said,
you.
there were no promises made other than to treat people fairly and with respect.
Mayor Taylor, let me jump to you. Do you believe the police union Van Pute press conference served to solve his office?
Yes, I do. I'm not concerned about the however many decades of relationship she's had with these folks. The single most important issue facing San Antonio right now in relation to our fiscal health is resolving this police contract. We have been working towards a resolution for many months, and we're very, very close. We really just had maybe one item, one issue that needed to be resolved. We had one more meeting set up for March 31st. The endorsement happened, and the police showed up and said they would not be making any more changes to their proposal. We've asked for additional meetings, and they have indicated that they'll take their chances in the political arena. That's what they've indicated verbally, have not responded in writing to our request for additional meetings. So I believe that the accepting of the endorsement was an act of self-interest and not reflective of the community interest. When I stepped out and said I was going to run, I made it quite clear that I would not seek or accept an endorsement from the police union, because as your current mayor, it is my job to resolve that issue, and I did not believe that it should be in the political arena, and now it has been placed squarely in the political arena.
I want to do a follow-up on the subject of collective bargaining. Go ahead, Mike.
So here's what's at stake. The public safety budget represents about 67% of our general fund. This is the fund where our sales taxes and our property taxes go. So it's a big slice of the pie. More than every 2 out of $3 in the general fund go to just this one function of city government. If you look back over the past 10 years, the public safety costs have been growing on average by 6% year to year. The exact number is 5.8. If you look at our revenue that feeds the general fund, it's been growing by closer to 4%. So this is unsustainable. If it was a small slice of the pie, we could manage it. We need to get serious about having a new contract that holds up public safety, but also the principle of financial sustainability. What we know from independent news reports is that Leticia met with a group of civic and business leaders on a Wednesday morning and promised them that she would back the city manager in the city manager's challenge to the evergreen clause in the police union contract. This is the clause that puts in place undisturbed for 10 years if there's no settlement in these negotiations, but continues the rich benefits of healthcare and other matters. We then learned that from the mouth of Mike Haley, the head of the police union, that Leticia promised him the exact opposite. Now you can take a position, you just can't take two. We need a mayor in running for this public job, holds this public interview, and is frank and honest and straightforward with where he or she stands.
Okay, Tommy, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, going back and forth when you're negotiating is very damaging to your credibility. I think that the problem that we've had with the council is we've had a large absence of the mayor's real presence before the interim mayor was appointed, and then you've got a council, 7 members of which have less than 2 years on the clock as council people. I served 16 years as county commissioner of precinct 4, which includes this very building, and 4 years in the Texas House of Representatives. I will tell you that when I was a kid, I didn't think experience was a big deal. But the more I walk down the road of life, the more I realize that's a big deal. And so when you have such a green council and you have a warfare program going on between a very powerful union and a very strong-willed city manager who, in the absence of mayoral presence and leadership, decided to go ahead and be the mayor as well as the city manager, I think that really jumps the track and causes everybody to say, well, this deal's not going to work. So when I'm here, the city manager will know his or her proper place, and we'll work together well, but the city manager will not treat the council like they're her employees, because they are her boss or his boss, and that's the way I'm going to do it.
Now, you have said, Tommy, before that you support continuing the contract with Cheryl Scully. Has that changed, or has it changed for any of you?
Well, it's only good for the end of 2015.
How about a new contract?
I'd give her every opportunity to reapply.
To reapply?
Reapply. That's right. Why should we lay prostrate in front of our employee?
Well, I wasn't asking you to go that far.
Okay, I'm so glad to hear that.
Leticia, how about you, as the city manager? She's been here a long time. We have a AAA bond rating. She's sort of considered first among equals nationally. She has a reputation for being tough, but she has been fiscal management in the city that has been the hallmark of San Antonio for the last 10 years.
It's been here for almost a decade. And I can tell you that Cheryl Scully has done a really good job of increasing the level of professionalism within the departments. She's done a fantastic job of managing 2 bond programs, over $1 billion. These are the bonds that are voted on about every 5 years by the people in this community, coming in on time and really managing those projects. I believe that what has happened with our city is in this council manager form of government, you really do need a very strong mayor and council to set policy, and then have a city manager, a CO, to implement. I think Cheryl's done a great job, and I hope she does apply and stays on. We know that our council members are not just young in age, but so many of them have been there less than 2 years. You're really going to need that strong mayor to be cohesive, to collaborate, to work with the council members so that we're working as one. And I know one thing that I do really well, and that's being able to look around the corner and see the challenges that are coming and bring people together and get things done.
Mike, do you
I'm excited about Cheryl Scully's ability to stay, and certainly if she'd like to, I think that that's an issue that mayor and council needs to bring up.
Okay.
Every great mayor needs a great city manager. She's been a great city manager. I will work to keep her. Is she perfect? No. Here's where I will partner with her and help improve the operations of city government. And that's with transparency. I want to make sure that our city government is open, that we can have honest conversations about our biggest challenges, that citizens feel listened to, that when we launch a planning process or have a proposal that's in front of city council, we really are trying to listen to public input, capture it, learn from it, and do better. And that's what I would do, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Taylor?
Well, I have enjoyed working with Cheryl, and I think she is a great manager. She's been a great asset for our city. And that's coming from the perspective of someone who's a former city employee. I worked for 6 years for the city of San Antonio under 2 other city managers that we had.
You were paid back then, weren't you?
Yes, I was paid. Yeah, I was paid back then. And I certainly believe that she has brought a level of professionalism that wasn't present when I was an employee. She and I we have a good working relationship. She's had to adjust to my working style. I'm more present and more attentive than I think the previous mayor was. And she has made adjustments accordingly, which is what resulted in us getting so close on the police contract. I think there was a previous philosophy that provided direction or did provide direction, so she kind of took the bull by the horns. But when I came in office, I made it very clear to her that I wanted to truly negotiate, and so we outlined how we're going to move forward, and that's exactly what we did. I have been talking with her about how we could improve on outreach to the public and ensuring that folks know what's going on down at City Hall, using some of the communication tools that we have available, but also thinking outside the box and being more innovative in relation to our community outreach.
Well, let me ask you, Mayor, we'll start with you and work the other way on how we can build a smarter city. Quite a few people in the audience wanted to know what specific steps, if you're given a full term or if any of you are elected mayor, that you'll take to attract smart workers and implement urban improvements that make San Antonio more competitive. And a few people in the business community, I think, added on to that some context. There's a question here that, well, this statement, the City and San Antonio Economic Development Foundation have done little to attract more tech startups, cyber security startups, or incentivizing native startups. If elected mayor, would you continue with the current EDF strategies and leadership in place, or would you tell voters tonight of specific plans to change the status quo?
Well, certainly I'm interested in changing the status quo and have been focused on that. Though certainly we want to attract smart workers, what I'm more focused on is growing smart workers here in San Antonio. We've got a wealth of talent of native San Antonians, folks that are here, going to school and starting their careers, and we want to, I think we can do a better job of ensuring that they have access to opportunities that will provide them with the skills to be able to take advantage of jobs at tech firms that are here, and also we want to grow more entrepreneurs here. In addition to that, we want for young, innovative folks that could be entrepreneurs or tech workers to find San Antonio to be an attractive place to live, and there are a lot of things that we can do to improve what and build on what we already have in that regard. I say at the top of the list is ensuring that we have a great downtown, and we've been making investments, strategic investments in downtown over the years, focusing on housing, and then also a major project over at Hemisphere, and I'd like to thank Madison for his work in that regard. But I think we need to look at our urban design standards as well, because while downtown is central, we also have several other nodes that can serve as great places for people to live, work, and play. We can replicate this model here at Pearl. We have opportunities in the medical center and at Brook City Base to create the types of environment where folks want to be. And then, of course, the other thing, that great asset we have is that ring of parks, the ring of greenway trails around the city, the Howard P. Greenway Trails, and that's another reason you should get out and vote on May 9th, because we have a proposition on the ballot that would allow us to double the funding that's available to build out that Greenways Trail program. That's just an example of the type of quality of life amenity that I think young folks are looking for.
Okay, Tommy, do you want to jump in on that, building a smarter city, and specifically in the context of whether or not EDF is strategically aligned with some of the opportunities?
Well, I think that the EDF derives a lot of its emphasis from not only its members, who pay a pretty penny to be in that process and in that membership, but also the two big entities are the county and the city. And I think the city and the county ought to work with the EDF to make sure that we have all the tech savvy stuff that we need to go after, and make sure that they're properly funded. The county put, I think, $500,000 a year for a set length of time, 4, 5, 6 years. The city did, I think, they did $500,000 too, and the CDS.
Jump to your ideas, Tommy. Don't get away from the finances of EDF, and tell me what you would do to build a smarter city.
Well, I think that you have to support this, but I think that the entities ought to come together, and I don't think they are together. They're riding off on their separate horses, going in different directions. And I think when you have a city this size, the county and the city have to work together. And then I think you get back to what we talked about at a rack space. We talked about making sure that the neighborhoods are acceptable and in good shape, and how we're doing on the quality of life factors. It's not just tech alone. It's because you've got people from Austin that are coming down here on the bus, in fact, en masse, going back and forth to work at Rackspace. So I think that's part of it.
For 10 years, I'm sorry, it only feels like 10 years, 10 months. I've been visiting with employers across the city, and the common denominator, really, it has been a long campaign for me. There's a common denominator that they all share, and that is that they're scrounging for skilled workers. Whether it's Valero or Rackspace or C.H. Luther & Son, they are all struggling to recruit technically skilled, highly qualified people. Now, my approach is two-part. One is about strengthening and diversifying our economy, and you can go to my website and read all about that, but I know we're on a time constraint, so I'm going to focus on the second part, and that is quality of life. The next generation does not want to live to work. They want to live well. And that means a high quality of life needs to be here if we're going to be successful in keeping and attracting well-educated 20 and 30-year-olds. As your mayor, I will bring back ride share.
Because it's 50 out there.
Because this is not just about having another way of getting around town, though that is very important in a city with too few transportation options. It's It's also about sending a signal to the world that we are ready for the 21st century. We are positioned to embrace and seize every opportunity that the future has in store. We should not be slowing down. From rideshare to Beast share to cycle, bike, rideshare. Give me another beer, Bob. Encouraging the urban development of San Antonio. This is important. We know that there is a national trend. Young people who are graduating from college are relocating to urban areas. They're choosing to live in interesting neighborhoods that are older, that are close to the business district. San Antonio needs to make this happen to be successful in keeping our own well-educated, let alone attracting others.
Okay, let's do this easy. This is to build a smarter city.
To build a smarter city, you really have to have a quality of leadership that looks at things systemically. EDF, our Economic Development Foundation, is doing a fairly good job. We have increased venture capital in the city last year, $120 million, and believe me, that was a big jump because before that it was about $40 million. But we're not capitalizing on things that are synergistic. Our life sciences, our healthcare and research, cloud computing. And so as mayor, I would put a focus on what sort of assets do we have already with those college programs, with the master's programs and PhDs, not only higher ed, but also our community colleges. And how can we really focus on something that capitalizes on that? We're doing fairly well until you're trying to attract money and you're just going to get that company excited about coming to San Antonio, and they read where we're the only major city that said no to ride-hail programs. I bring that back, start over, make sure that that's available. When we're not even on the big team list anymore for Google Fiber. And my goodness, today's headline scared me, right? Washington Post, San Antonio, get your act together. When those sort of things come out, and it was because of what had happened at the Alamo Dome with the soccer match just upon us. Those headlines, that type of thing hurts us economically in a way that we cannot attract. We need to make sure that our center city core is really a place where creative minds can come together. That's researchers, that's digital, that's artists. They do want that quality of life. But it's not just about that downtown. It's about those neighborhoods. And it's important as your mayor to make sure that we're not saying no to new technology, that we're not shunning away the opportunity to grab onto those new industries and technology. I think that they've done, DPM has done a fairly good job, but how can we expect them to do great when we keep acting like we don't have our act together with rideshare, with Google Fiber, and with now so many other headlines?
Okay, thank you.
To make a clarifying point, because so many of you come out, you're taking your time. I want to make sure that you leave with accurate information. We are not on the B list for Google Fiber. Google Fiber is still analyzing San Antonio. I've had several meetings with them since I've been mayor. They are still hiring people. The issue is that San Antonio is so large geographically, and our topography, they have to do an analysis based on the size of our city and the technology that they're trying to bring. They have not been able to give us the definitive yes, but they continue investing resources and sending staff here and working with our city's IT department. So I think it's an unfair characterization to say that we're on the B list. The other thing that I would just ask, it doesn't have to be answered now, but what I would pose rhetorically to the folks who say they're going to bring back rideshare is the reason why Uber decided to leave specifically is because they don't want to do the fingerprint background checks for their drivers, which we said they could do 14 days after onboarding. So that's my specific question to folks who say they're going to bring them back. Does that mean that you are going to ignore the advice of our law enforcement officials who say that fingerprints are the most reliable way to verify the identity of the person who is in the driving you around in vehicle?
Briefly, really briefly. Okay, so we went through 2 rounds of regulating rideshare. Let me remind you about round 1, and this is really why rideshare companies left town. The mayor signed the task of writing regulations to regulate rideshare to a council person who had received thousands of dollars from the taxi industry.
We have a committee, the Public Safety Committee.
So this council person led that effort and was allowed at the 11th hour to bring amendments to council on the day of the vote. These were amendments that were not vetted by the public. That vote was rushed. There was a newly elected but not yet sworn in member of council who wanted to be sworn in so he could participate in this discussion. Rideshare was important in his election, yet he was not allowed to be sworn in to participate. There's no doubt in my mind that the reason why these companies left San Antonio and went to Austin was because they asked themselves, can we afford to invest this much in trying to exist in one city and then do it all over again in 100 other cities in Texas? It was embarrassing.
That's a good spot to leave it, because we are going to await the actions of the Texas legislature one way or the other to see if that bill passes or doesn't carry, so we'll park right here for just a minute. But I want to go back.
They've been asking about background checks and discussions.
Okay, I want to go back to transportation, though. We're talking a lot about the urban core, and the fact of the matter is, most of us in San Antonio work and live outside the urban core. Most people live outside Loop 410. More and more people live outside Loop 1604. If you're elected mayor, will you come forward in your first term with a specific transportation proposal? Perhaps it probably would be it will address either moving people out to the far northwest or moving people from the airport to downtown through some mass transit mechanism. If any of you have a mass transit plan or idea that you want to take forward, and tell me, you got your hand up, you go first.
Yeah, I would tell you that I think I've watched this all of my life. People moving out of my neighborhood, which is, well, it's not only within 410, it's within Loop 13, okay? It's just 5 miles as the crow flies southeast of here. And I've watched people move out for years and years, partially, and to a great extent, because the city basically has got an informal policy of having throwaway neighborhoods. It didn't happen on your watch, okay? But it's happened all of my life. They let the animals, the dangerous animals run loose. I'm glad for a no-kill policy. I want to support a no-kill policy. I'm not looking to do anything except make sure that if I want to run around the block in my neighborhood, I do not want to be chased by somebody's pit bull. I do not want to second guess whether that's serious stuff. Not that.
No, that's a reasonable point. It's not exactly mass transit.
No, it is. It's better than mass transit. It relieves the need for so much mass transit because people are living where they don't have to take the bus, they can walk, they can bike, they can be close to things. And then if those that want to move out to the burbs want to, that's a mass transit thing.
Okay. Mike, mass transit.
Land use.
Yeah, watch out for those pitfalls. Those chihuahuas. I think it's important to recognize the relationship between mass transit and housing and how we develop.
Suburban sprawl is really not
So
such a problem.
the toothpaste is already out of the tube. We have at least 13 different job centers around San Antonio. I believe there is a lot of merit to VIA's vision of having a wheel and spoke system of BRT. I want to see how the first line that is going in around Stone Oak and onto the Highway 281 into downtown.
Bus rapid transit.
Bus rapid transit involves a 4-story parking garage, parking ride with a ramp that feeds into a dedicated HOV lane. It is paid for all the way up to 1604, and then it stops. Ultimately, that line is not going to be successful unless we add capacity, add another HOV lane, so that bus can whiz into downtown. I also want to see that along our business corridors, like San Pedro. San Pedro is extra wide. It can support a high-quality bus line that can then encourage higher density development, and one day be the line for a future rail system. But I think we need to first. I first believe we need to help support greater density and increase the quality of this bus line in these strategic areas.
Letitia's suburban sprawl and getting people efficiently in and out of there before we have an air quality issue that's coming up, and it's going to only get worse when the EPA comes out with its new emission standards. We have more and more congestion in traffic. How do you feel about making that a major agenda item for your first term here as mayor?
The next mayor and council will have to absolutely focus on public transportation. When you say mass transit, what we're really talking about are two populations. Public transit, and really the reason we are that half-cent sales tax for VIA was not because people really felt like we needed to keep our air quality or they wanted to be green. The real purpose was to give people who have no cars the opportunity to get to school or work. Now, we hope that with VIA's bus rapid transit, having Wi-Fi, having convenience of scheduling and easily pick up and parking close to it, that it will convince people who have the option of getting in their car to use public transit. Now, it may not work for everyone, but that means it's one less person trying to get out of the subdivision. And that's where it is. But I've got to tell you folks, this is an expensive proposition. We need to work towards light rail. We need to make sure that the public understands what those costs will be. And it's not just 281 coming into downtown. The major work centers really right now are not downtown. They're in the medical center. So take, if you will, that state highway that's at Warsbach Parkway, right? Great, absolutely, heading to there. And it's going to leave off at Lockhall Selma, and then we're going to 2 lanes to the medical center. Our city has not planned. This is one instance where we have not planned with TxDOT, with the county, to look. We're going to have great state highway, but what about those? And so partially it is, let's take care of the safety and the issues that are on it. We're going to have that congestion there. And what you're going to need is a mayor that understands we're going to need every dollar, and we'll fight, and we'll try to grab every federal dollar, every state dollar, every dollar that we can get from the RMA, the Regional Mobility Authority, work with the Advanced Transportation District and VIA. Because it's not just one funding source that's going to get us there. And then we've got to go to the people to say, will you support us? I know I can be that champion of transportation, but I will make sure that everybody knows what's involved, get that input, and have that strategic plan.
Okay. You see that as your platform for moving forward with some comprehensive mass transit?
Yes, you anticipate where I was gonna go. I can't say that I have a grandiose plan. I believe that all of us together should collectively develop a vision based on the data that we have about how our city grows and the vision that we develop about how we want to grow and develop over the next 25 years or so. I can tell you that the issue that got me involved in serving in elected office and that I worked on as a city employee is facilitating development inside Loop 410. So I think that is something we need to continue working on. But then from a transportation perspective, we need the engagement of as many of you in the room as possible in the development of our 5-year multimodal transportation plan that we're developing between the city, the NPO, and VIA. And then that is a component of our overall comprehensive plan that will address our land use and how and where we want to grow as a community. There are opportunities for VIA to improve in the interim, improve some of the service that they provide. But I think certainly what's key is for us to focus on the relevance of VIA to all San Antonians and not just folks who use public transportation as a last resort, because that's how we'll build the support that we need for VIA to make the investments necessary to adequately build out our transportation system to meet the needs of our growing city.
I want to add that more than 50 pedestrians and cyclists are killed in San Antonio every year, and that is an issue for many people in this room, including yours truly. I put some notes down about Broadway because a couple people wrote that since we're at the Pearl to ask about Broadway, that no street or boulevard in our city has been the subject of more private sector investment, as we can all attest in here at the Pearl, which started that revolution. And yet sidewalks exist on some blocks and not on others. A local or a visitor can't walk on Broadway without running out of sidewalk. The bike lanes, where there is even striping even visible anymore, are usually occupied by legally parked cars, meaning they really aren't bike lanes. What will you do if you're elected mayor to really make San Antonio bike friendly and safe for pedestrians? And Letizia, let me start with you on that.
You know, right now, we are mitigating the costs of communities that were built to just get a car in and out of the neighborhood, out of the subdivision. It really begins with the very beginning, the planning commission, the zoning commission. I really propose putting somebody on that with public health knowledge. Why? Because they understand that if you have more people who can use bicycles, if they can walk, then that's going to help not only congestion, but it really helps our health status. What we know is that San Antonio is a really complicated street, right? Some of it was following counties. What other city changes names of its streets 4 times within their time, right? That's totally San Antonio. But we haven't made that a priority. And sometimes when we have the choice, it's so easy to put it to the side. We need to make sure that all of our thoroughfares are those bikeable, safe thoroughfares. And that, let me tell you, Broadway's no different from El Paso Street in District 5 or Oak Hill in District 7. They don't have sidewalks. And even if we did, those sidewalks, and you've got a utility pole right in the middle. So for people who are in the disabled community, there is no way for them to navigate. You're really going to need to look at comprehensively how we mitigate what has already occurred, and then make sure that every single future dollar in any sort of project is vital, that it's welcome.
Mike, is that doable? I was told by someone in the city that just the sidewalk repair list is $31 million behind to address sidewalks in Fort Trumbull. That's a lot of money just to deal with sidewalks. And we really don't have bike lanes or much less protected bike lanes in our city.
In my mind, I go back to getting the police and fire contract right. If you care about streets, if you care about bike lanes, if you care about sidewalks, if you care about making San Antonio a place with more safe places to walk, ride a bike, we have to pay for that. We have to find it in our existing budget. And so this is why it's so important to have a mayor who's going to represent the public interest in getting that contract right. Let me tell you, if you go to MikeFerrell.com/Mike's plan, you'll find my position papers, and you'll find a 3-page position paper on all my ideas on how to make San Antonio the top 10 most bikeable cities. This is what I'm going to be focused on. But here's some things I can do that I want to do, and I don't need a plan to tell me how these changes need to be made. Number one, we need to finish the emerging linear park system. We need to tie it into the river. We need to finish out creekways. Where there are no creeks, we need to be aggressive about we need to be serious about this complete streets idea, where streets are meant not just for cars, but for bikes and for pedestrians. We have a sidewalk specification in our city ordinance that highway traffic engineers think is unacceptable. The sidewalk is too narrow, 2 wheelchairs approaching each other are playing chicken, one will have to fall off to get the other one through. The sidewalks are built up to the curb, making it unsafe for the person walking and the driver. We need to, now cities change slowly over time, but we need to make these changes in what we describe as the minimum standard for San Antonio development. If we expect people to live healthier lives, to walk, to bike, these are just a few of the things that I will change. Okay? Let me just add this one thing. For me, it's not just about policy and being a policymaker. This is personal. I own a bike. I like people. I take my family from Southtown to our favorite bookshop at the Twig, and we have to navigate through downtown, trying to keep our children safe when big SUVs are hurling down Broadway. We need to get this right.
I would just tell you that the Pearl is a wonderful development. I'm glad to see that that it's done so well. And I have invested a lot of our county's money in some of the various people that have come over here to put apartments up and all kinds of great things. I'm very proud. A lot of this has been in my precinct. I believe, however, that if any of you remember the Power Store that was over here on Broadway, right south of Jones Avenue, Kent Farmer ran that place. He was broken into 7 times in a period of about 2 years. So if you don't get the security thing done, you won't get the residents down here. They're going to say, I'd love to be there, it's cool and all that. I'll go there for a dinner on Sunday or Saturday, but I will not live there. And I've heard that over the years. What we've got to do is you've got to have good security, you've got to have good fundamentals, neighborhoods, and all that will help solve a lot of this and give people a comfort level with riding their bike in that neighborhood. So, and you get this deals with animal care services and all those questions that attend those who ride bicycles and who are pedestrians.
Last word on that question?
Sure, well, again, I encourage folks to get involved in this planning effort because I think that that should drive how we prioritize the use of funding and not just our annual budget, but in 2017, we'll have a big bond that will be coming up and the majority of the funds are usually used for streets and street maintenance and for sidewalks. It'll be in excess of $500 million. And so if we come to an agreement that we want to prioritize a real investment in sidewalks, I would love to see that happen. I think we ought to tackle the idea of a sidewalk plan. I've asked about this several times since I've been on the council, and my impression has been that people have been so intimidated by the number related to the need. Actually, the number I've heard has been in billions. In relation to sidewalk needs in the city. So I think for a long time, staff was just throwing their hands up, well, we can't tackle that. But I think we should have a plan and that we should start with the 2017 bond. In addition, we have to take advantage of the opportunity to revamp our Unified Development Code, which is what guides the development of infrastructure. I think we've set the bar too low in relation to infrastructure. I've experienced some of that frustration myself when I used to walk my daughter to school and the poles that would be in the middle of the street, and I remember there was a lady that had twins in the stroller and the sidewalk was not wide enough for her double wide stroller for her to, and she actually had to get in the street. So I think if we want to be a top-notch city, we've got to have top-notch infrastructure. We got to have standards that dictate that when we invest in infrastructure, that it's going to be suitable to meet all the needs of the public. And then on the bicycle issue, I think we need to revisit the bicycle master plan that the council passed back in 2011. Because I know we've worked on implementation, but I don't know that we've been strategic enough, because what I hear from people is, well, there are lanes, but they don't go far enough and they don't connect to things. So I think maybe we should work on ensuring that certain areas where people have destinations are connected via bicycle lane. and then start moving out from there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all the questions coming from the audience. There is one last question I wanted to ask the mayor specifically. It came from a number of people that are in the design and development and construction industry. One way the city can incentivize more development downtown and around downtown is through public-private partnerships. In fact, the city has initiated several P3s, as they're called, and last July, shortly before Mayor Castro left office, he joined with Weston Urban and Frost Bank to announce a new P3 that would give the downtown its first new office tower in 25 years. It will be 9 months at the end of April since the deal was announced, and some developers are expressing fear that the city is simply too difficult to think big with, that the deal is going to fall apart, and that Frost Bank and Graham Weston and his partners can't put together something that works. No one can. So what's the holdup? Any news?
Got some news. Got a text from the manager about 3 hours ago on this. There was a meeting that was held late this afternoon, and we are moving forward. We have some progress. The council is going to be briefed in executive session on either tomorrow or Thursday. So I don't have all the details to share with you, but I do know that there have been several meetings held within the last few months, and that we've been working on the numbers and working very diligently to close the gap so that we can have our first new office tower in downtown San Antonio since, I believe, the 1980s. So yes, the city is very motivated. And I am committed to us using the P3 vehicle. However, I do believe that there are probably some opportunities for us to look at how we can improve the process in, getting to the point of having a deal. And I look forward to continuing to serve as mayor so that I can work on just that.
Did she send you that text because she knew I was going to ask this? All right,